Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Sentinels have given their thoughts on the massive matchup upcoming in just a few days time here between themselves and 100 Thieves in the first round single elimination of the last chance qualifier. They believe they are way more prepared now than they have been at any point so far this season and are significantly better prepared than effectively any other team that they expect to play. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. This is a very interesting one as well here on Binds, where we can find the Deadlock Ultimate will actually open the doors, the teleporter doors, which seems like a bug. I can't imagine this is intentional, but if it is intentional, it would be really interesting. So I guess they're going to fix that, but maybe not. We shall see. They did do a nerf and buff, kind of patch update yesterday, but no nerfs and buffs to any agent. So yeah, patch 7.01, nothing special going on there. This also was the Oxygen update we've seen over the last couple of days. They were teasing some sort of announcement, whether that was going to be them leaving or exactly what the plan was there, but they confirm that there's a rebrand going on. So they've taken the old branding and honestly some really cool graphics here, it's got to be said. The guys I'm sure worked really hard on this one to generate this brand new logo and graphics. This is Oxygen from now on, and this is the new Oxygen Esports logo and branding going forward. Speaking of Sentinels though, in a few minutes time, Dephh was of course a player for them at the start of the season. Didn't work out for him and the team. There was obviously friction there. It wasn't really going to plan. They decided to go a different direction entirely. He is looking to make a return to some sort of competition, but probably not as a player. We know that M80, after just falling short at the Ascension qualifier playoffs that we saw just a few days ago for the franchise league, they just fell short of the guard. But they recently hired Hiko as their vice president, right, to try and take them to the next level as an esports team, and going into Counter-Strike has been confirmed as one of their key goals. So they're targeting a new core, and quite possibly Dephh is reportedly returning to potentially coach that team. Not to IGL it, but to coach the team instead, which would be a really interesting option. It might be the correct way to go for Dephh. I think that after the Sentinel stint, his stock is in a tricky spot. I thought he did a great job on XSET last year, but if you're Dephh right now, how many good options does he have left as an IGL in the Valorant scene in Tier 1? It's going to be tricky to find opportunities for Dephh. And does he really want to go down to Tier 2 and IGL down there and struggle through? Possibly not. And if he gets an offer here from M80 to be a coach for their CSGO team, that might be the way to go. So just an update on that. And of course, we'll get back to the situation with the Sentinels boys in just a couple of seconds. Firstly, though, Platchat, they've been giving their predictions on the LCQs around the world. These are the predictions for EMEA. Two of these teams qualify, let's not forget, with Fnatic winning the event in Masters Tokyo. Both Na'Vi and Giant in this example would make it through. Those are the two teams. Na'Vi probably should be favoured. Heretics, not much faith in them it seems from the boys over at Platchat. This first round is a knockout, let's not forget, and Carmine Corb expected to have improved somewhat since what we saw from them earlier on this season. These are their predictions for the Pacific though. Team Secret they've got winning it, of course only one of these teams makes it, but RRQ, they've got them making quite the run. They definitely improved significantly towards the end of the regular season, so if they can put up a fight, it'll be very interesting. But of course GenG are in here, not much faith in them. Talon, of course Zeta Division, so some great teams. Only one of these will qualify. They've gone Team Secret, and this is their prediction for the Americas. They've got Sentinels beating 100 Thieves, they've got Crew Esports taking down what would it be, MIBR I guess in the first round there, then losing to Furia though, then Leviathan they've got making the run all the way to the finals, beating Sentinels in the lower final as Sentinels lose to Cloud9, beat Furia and then lose again, with Cloud9 taking the entire thing. And C9 should be the favourites here, right? I think there's no doubt about that theoretically, how good they looked in the regular season, but there is an argument to say that Sentinels have more practice time and preparation time than kind of any of these other squads, mainly, or at least in part because, as Rob Moore is about to describe here in a second, even before the end of the season, they kind of knew that their playoff chances were limited. So Cloud9 and other teams played in the playoffs, so they were grinding the playoffs pretty hard. Then after the playoffs concluded, they then took a break really from competing, whereas as soon as the season was over for Sentinels, their focus shifted straight away to the LCQ. No worries about playoffs, just pure preparation, and they have had many more weeks of practice than many of these other teams in prep for what is a massive tournament for them. Fundamentally though, the first round is still single elim. Anything can happen there against 100 Thieves, but they should be favoured. Most would have them winning that series. But the projections, according to DFA Montero here, based on the ELO scores, has a result looking like this, with Cloud9 winning almost 80% of the time, which feels very unlikely for this to be fully accurate. I imagine in terms of like the ELO ratings and the analysis on the season, this is what it comes out to be. But, I think it's going to be more competitive than Cloud9 winning this 80% of the time. Sentinels, I think, definitely have a higher than 4% chance, then Fury, then 100 Thieves. The other teams, very much unlikely, but we will see. Cloud9 are the favourites, but Sentinels have other ideas. So a really interesting interview they did with Tarek, who does a great job at stuff like this, with Kaplan, of course, the coach of the team, TenZ was there, and then Rob Moore, the CEO, and he's been into various things over the last couple of seasons. You guys might remember the drama with him and ShahZaM not that long ago, it feels like at this point. So anyway, he gives his thoughts on the situation and just how they're feeling in general. TenZ says they're feeling in all aspects very much well prepared, and the feeling is that they have had plenty more time to prepare than plenty of these other teams.
But so now it felt like, okay, this team was going to enjoy playing the game together for the first time. And so it's like, okay, we make playoffs, we don't make playoffs. That's not really the most important thing right now. It's having the time frame. So this team will have prepared more for the LCQ than it was prepared for lock-in. Right? That's what is now unfolding.
Yeah. And obviously we've got LCQ coming up. Like, you think the team is like in a pretty good spot? Because decent amount of time has passed now with the 5 that you guys have.
Yeah. Looking at it right now, I would say definitely like just terms of energy, in terms of how we play with each other, how we get along, our map pool, our agent comps. Like, I think everything's like kind of slotting into position. And I'm really glad. So everything's looking up.
LCQ is kind of like the next big thing for us that is, kind of scary, if we're going to be honest about it. The format is ridiculous. Single elimination versus 100 Thieves. Losers out. So you guys worried? Because I feel like I'm pretty nervous, like as a spectator. I hope you guys aren't worried. Well, I mean, there's a factor of nerves. I think it's okay to be nervous, right? I think if anyone says they don't have nerves while they're playing for a big match is BS, because the best players, they put the nerves aside and they play to the pressure. So what about you, Rob? How are you feeling about that? What do you think about that match?
It was interesting when we had those conversations. I think it was Saucy who said it, because he was even more ambitious than I was, right? Where he's like, I want to win champions. And I'm like, you know what? That's where we had that conversation about, you know what? Why shouldn't we be able to? Because now for the first time, you're going to now have 2 months to get ready for LCQ. And a lot of other teams are going to take breaks, which we're now like, for the first time, it's like
the opposite.
We're now going to be the ones who've put in the most work, right? So I think that's all you can ask for, is if you have a talented group of people who are putting in the work, then most of the time that's going to work out.
So it is funny in a way, right? The Sentinels' whole thing has been over the last couple of years, we're not practicing that hard and all this stuff. But they say that they've been really putting in the effort. And TenZ reckon that ever since Dephh stepped away and Marv comes in, they make a couple of changes to roles. Marv becomes the IGL. They immediately felt more comfortable. They had like a honeymoon period effectively, and they just felt better and better over time. And that has seemingly been maintained until the present day, when they're coming into what is going to be a massive matchup. But as Marv says, the match on the 16th is mid, not that hyped. Just carry on with your lives, do something else, don't watch it or anything. But FNS has been trying his absolute best to ensure that this match is the most watched match like ever, and everyone's tuning in to see how it's getting on, because it's going to be a big one. If Sentinels win that, a lot of confidence, I'm sure, will fly in for the rest of rest of their LCQ. But it seems like Sassy is even more confident. I mean, as Rob Moore says, Sassy's more confident than myself, as Rob Moore, I guess his expectation expectation was, look, win the LCQ, that'll be a good goal for us from now to the end of the season. But Sassy's like, look, well, if we can win the LCQ, why can't we win champions, right? We know how well EG did at the recent event at Masters Tokyo. They looked good in the regular season at times, but nothing spectacular. They turned up big time towards the end of it. But if EG can do what they did, why couldn't Cloud9 do what they did, theoretically? And if Cloud9 get beaten by Sentinels here at the LCQ, if we do get a matchup like that to determine the champion, only one of those teams, of course, goes through because EG didn't win Masters Tokyo, Fnatic did instead, getting an extra spot for their region and not for the others, then why can't Sentinels go even further going forward? So this might be optimistic thinking from Sentinels' perspective, that not only are they going to win the LCQ, but they're going to win champions, but clearly a lot of confidence right now coming out of that camp. And Zekken and Sassy and Pankara, TenZ and of course Marved settling into their respective roles and feeling like they might well be the team to beat here, right? But of course the other teams are also practicing hard. We don't see anything from Cloud9 or from Leviathan necessarily, but I imagine they're also still putting in the effort. But Sentinels seem to believe that they're in a much better spot than those other teams. Now, whether the additional practice they've got relative to those other teams makes that much difference, all things considered, just because let's say you've had 3 weeks of practice and another team has had 3 days, then sure, that's a big difference. But if you add another month to both of those and one team's had 7 weeks of practice and one team's had 4 weeks and 3 days, you know, at that point, there's a little bit of diminishing returns, I suppose. So we'll see. But Sentinels are talking a big game here. And as FNS says, match of the century on the 16th, Oppenheimer on the 21st. Good few days, I'm sure, upcoming after this one. And that is pretty much where we are going to leave it for today. So very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.